All right, thanks, Matt. Yeah, here we are entering round number 3. Adam Wasburn on the right, and Mason Clark, who will be doing commentary tomorrow afternoon for Pioneer. He is here to play to try and get into the championship.
Yeah, I know it's often unfairly said that the booth is where you send your washed up gamers who are being put out to pasture, but Mason really showing that is unfair and scurrilous.
Yeah, obviously he's up to par. 2 creatures on turn 1 for Adam Wasburn to deal with. One of them being the ever annoying Esper Sentinel.
Yeah, and this matchup, Hammer versus Murktide, this is really a classic of post MH2 Modern, and I think the consensus historically has been pretty favored for the Hammer side if the Hammer player knows what they're doing, and both players I think pretty confident with their choices here. So I think Mason will be pleased to see this pairing, but obviously got to keep his focus and play tight to convert on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen a lot of sharp plays so far today. No reason to think it wouldn't continue this round. Mason's in with Urza Saga, developing early here. Another, okay, well, no, none of the real power creatures yet, though. No Stoneforge Mystic, just a couple of Memnites.
Yeah, Memnite, not one of the heavy hitters in this deck. It does enable some of those really fast goldfishes. That is not on the table in this game, and so those Memnites are, I guess, pretty nice roadblocks for Ragavan. Is their purpose now?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I think that we've seen and heard talk for quite a while now about boarding Ragavan out in some matchups, so the opponent just has numerous free blockers like Memnites. And you see here it trades for, I mean, yeah, that is not what Adam Wasburn was looking for with one of the arguable top cards in the format, trading with a free 1/1.
Yeah, who would win? A $100 Mythic Monkey or a Scars Mirrored Uncommon, which actually I think, was a fair penny itself in its day. But I think Mason will be happy to take that trade. And now Urza Saga creating yet another substantial threat in the second construct and digging up. We'll see if it's Hammer. We'll see if it's something else, given that there doesn't seem to be Puresteel Paladin or anything in the mix just yet.
Right. Doesn't matter what it is here. Anything will pump those constructs. Yeah, Mason will consult the hand and go with Shadowspear. Does very well attached to constructs.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pairing we see in basically any format where Urza Saga is played outside of stuff like Vintage. Just the one Shadowspear, pretty low cost to include in your Saga deck, and it makes those constructs much more substantial. But this is an equipment-based combo deck, and so you can fetch out Shadowspear with your Stoneforge Mystic, with cards like Shield Shaper's Gift, and just add a whole new dimension to the deck in that way.
Mm-hmm. So Colossus Hammer attempting to pump the construct by 1 there. Instead, it gets countered by Spell Pierce. As in 1 construct gets burned off. So 3 damage comes across, but this is a lot for Adam Wasburn to have to deal with without even costing Mason much in the way of resources, just time.
Yeah, and a second copy of Urza Saga is sneaking onto the battlefield there. Another steady stream of threats, and then something strong there on the back end. Interesting. Adam feeling the need to use this dress down now, which then finds a third land drop, cleans up the board, but now the coast is clear for just that second copy of Urza Saga to go again.
Right. So Mason may have been inclined to activate Saga during combat, try and push through extra damage, and Adam could have picked off an extra token, but again, maybe he wouldn't have. Certainly safe to get it out of the way there, and maybe looking for a draw for the turn to get things going. But as it stands, yeah, that dress down picks off 2 tokens, but 2 more already on the board.
Yeah, these are going to be 5/5s, and that's before any additional artifacts join the board potentially.
Yeah, this is I'm not sure how many copies of Dress Down are in Adam's deck. Maybe we'll take a look here, but the more the better. There are 2. Okay, so potentially there's another one waiting.
Yeah, and I think that's a conscious choice by Adam in a region, in a circuit where there are a lot of good Hammer players. Use those flex slots to shore up that Hammer matchup a little bit. So Dress Down doing its intended purpose here, but it may not be enough because that second Urza Saga is just doing the same work as the first.
Yeah, and now problematic, even more so, I guess, is a Dress Down, although I haven't actually seen this come up, a Dress Down will not actually kill the token equipped by Shadowspear now, right? It'll survive the turn and then go back to its former size. So that's another irritant for Adam, who is sitting on at least 1 counterspell. And yeah, counter magic, not so great when your opponent's cards are all cheaper than yours.
Yeah, Counterspell, a historically just universal and efficient answer, which I know a lot of control players were very happy to see join the format with MH2. Hammer is a deck so efficient that they can kind of sneak under a Counterspell a lot of the time. And,
Mhm.
a card like Urza Saga, right, is a fantastic trump to any kind of reactive card like that.
Well, I mean, so Matt said that Adam's quote about MH2 having such a huge impact, all the best cards in the Eternal formats came from MH2. Do you think he was talking about Counterspell specifically?
Well, both of these decks really epitomize that. You've got Urza
Mhm.
Saga on the one hand, Esper Sentinel as well, and then on the other side, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Ragavan, Unholy Heat, this kind of trio
Yeah.
of red cards, Counterspell, Murktide region. I mean, this is a modern Horizons 2 theme deck, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know that Counterspell is quite up to the power level of a lot of those other cards we mentioned there, but that's the one Adam's going with alongside the Murktide. And Mason takes game one pretty decisively, although not maybe in the classic Hammer style. It was just Urza Saga just beating down.
Yeah, Hammer was a known and pretty successful modern deck before MH2, but you really were reliant on your Hammer draws, that kind of combo aspect of the deck. Now with Urza Saga and this additional range of tools for Stoneforge Mystic and some
Mhm.
other aspects of the deck, you can very easily win just by being this kind of artifact aggro deck of sorts.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead and look at the sideboards here. And if you want, video footage, if you think our commentary sucks and you wish we would, just get beat up, go back and watch the top 8 of the Rage event, and you will see me losing to the aggressive hammer draws in about 8 seconds. So kind of the approach. Sometimes we see the slow saga beat down. Sometimes we see the hammer viciousness. All right, Adam Wasserman Moses, Izzet Murktide here. Got kind of crunched in game one, even though did have some of the interactive cards he was looking for. Sunburn, Dress Down, but yeah, Ragavan trading for a Memnite. That's a rough place to be. Looking for help here in the sideboard. Are we going to find much here? Energy Explosives? I mean, that's good, right?
We're going to find some. Yeah, Engineering Explosives, one of the better sideboard cards that really any deck can play against Hammer. We have Fury that we saw do some good work, the third copy of Dress Down. And then maybe the spiciest option here, the one Brotherhood's End, which, I mean, either half of that card, either choice is going to be pretty good. But
Mm-hmm.
the mass artifact destruction just can clean up the entire battlefield a lot of the time. And then going over to Mason's sideboard, Mono White deck typically doesn't have great sideboard options here, but we have the Drannith Magistrate, I think earmarked for a few other matchups like the Breach decks. Sanctifier en-Vec, which not as great as it used to be against Murktide, thanks to Legislator primarily, but still pretty good. And then a few options here like Path to Exile, Relic of Progenitus, I think maybe on the table here. Blacksmith Skill as a nice way to kind of force your way through interaction as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see the Haywire Mite there hanging on the sideboard also. That's something where we do have a Temple Garden. All right, I was wondering, yeah, it's unlikely just Springleaf Drum was going to be enough to pull that off. But yeah, there's Temple Garden as well as Horizon Canopy. So actually a whole plethora of green sources to be able to activate that Haywire Mite at very little cost. So that's another exciting inclusion in the deck here. And yeah, players
it's quite convenient actually that
mm-hmm.
you look back a few months ago, blue was actually the go-to splash in the Hammer decks for stuff like Spell Pierce and Lavinia and some of these sideboard cards. The one big downside of blue is blue white as a color combination doesn't have one of these canopy lands. Whereas if you just have the light green splash, you get the original canopy land, you get Horizon Canopy. So that's a nice way to kind of free roll this smallest of possible splashes, just the one ability on this one card, but which actually does add a lot of angles to the deck at the same time.
Yeah, I mean having singletons, it's not really a singleton when you have 4 Urza Sagas that can tutor it up, and yeah, it definitely adds a lot of power and capability to the deck. Haywire Mite. So both players with kind of a relatively new card in the sideboard, Haywire Mite, and then with the Brotherhood's End. Let's go ahead and pop up Brotherhood's End if we get a chance, as that's a card that has not had a huge impact yet, and some people might be unaware of a new sweeper / artifact removal spell that Dominic was describing there. You can see 2 options, 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker, and that's kind of a new element to this type of card. Like Anger of the Gods is not going to hit planeswalkers as well. And then the other option, to destroy all artifacts with mana value 3 or less, which is basically everything relevant in this deck. You're not going to get Kaldra Compleat anyway, so 3 or less or 7 or less, same difference.
Yeah, we've seen cards like Anger of the Gods and so on show up in Modern from time to time. So there's a home for that kind of effect. Not exiling is a pretty big deal, especially you think about like a deck like Yawgmoth, for example, where a lot of the creatures are quite sticky in that sense.
Yeah.
But if you're playing this card, it is for that second mode primarily, and it's for this Hammer matchup, which, as we mentioned, not great for Murktide on the face of it. You really need the help there, and this is one way to help yourself out.
All right, so let's see if how things develop here. Well, it looks like Mason Clark unsatisfied with the hand, Adam keeping, and now being aware of the matchup. And we talked a little bit about open versus closed deck lists. You know, if Adam was unaware game one, what he was playing against, that may have led to counter spells being kept in hand, whereas now they very possibly are even not in the deck anymore.
Yeah, I think a lot of these players, especially once you play a lot on a circle like this, like you get to know each other's tendencies, and I imagine they both knew what the other one was playing.
Yeah, that's certainly possible.
But then, you know, it's pretty easy for a deck like Murktide to have stuff that's going for it, and then to just draw a counter spell, which is, you know, too slow, too late to do anything.
Yeah. All right, Mason happy with 6, and we're underway in game 2. I don't think have we seen a game 3 yet today?
I don't think we have. No.
All right. Well, we'll see if Adam can make that happen for us this time around. There's an Esper Sentinel, but the bauble gets into play first as Adam on the play this time, so a little less taxing. But again, another creature that can jump in the way of Ragavan. Is that a good trade? Esper Sentinel for Ragavan from Mason's perspective? Obviously, Memnite was a good trade. This one is closer, I would think.
Yeah, I think it's generally fine. There's always this kind of groan when you trade off and then they just have the second Ragavan, which would have been dead otherwise. At the same time, I think if you let Ragavan start connecting, then it's much easier for them to pay for the Sentinel attacks with their treasures and so on. And that Esper Sentinel coming off of Mason's deck for Adam, I was about to say the thing about Hammer having a lot of these off the wall cards, like Adam's deck has no use for a Colossus Hammer, right? Unless you also hit the Sigarda's Aid or something. But Esper Sentinel, one of those cards, but you might actually consider just cashing in that treasure for.
All right, well, we'll see what Adam chooses to do here. Going to bobble himself and does not like the card, so Fetch is going to clear that away. And yeah, in addition to whatever he's got from his hand, we'll see if this Esper Sentinel finds its way onto the board. And it will.
And Sunbaked Canyon being the first land for Mason, dealing him a point of pain whenever he uses it, suggests that either land light or just maybe light on white sources, which is an issue when you have, I think we see at least one Puresteel Paladin and potentially Sanctifier en-Vec in the deck now as well. But there was a Springleaf Drum that can help to remedy that.
Yeah. But that does take up more of Mason's turn than ideal, at least when you're going to pay the tax, and then Bolt takes out Esper Sentinel, and Adam will pay the tax. So, yeah, taxes all around.
And this is a nice sequence here. Bolting the Sentinel in response to the drum, meaning Mason can't use the drum now with no creature left to follow up with another play on this turn. So, getting punished for that, I don't think he could have avoided that necessarily. And, oh, God, this is a...
Wow.
The second Esper Sentinel potentially joining the army here for Adam.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly not in the range of plays that Adam would have practiced, but having 2 Esper Sentinels in play is going to be fairly irritating for Mason. I mean, it just costs you, some mana or maybe a card a turn, but when if he wants to resolve something in Puresteel Paladin plus something else, it's going to cost him.
I think practicing flipping good cards off the opponent's deck is a vital skill if you're going to match the Ragavan in a tournament.
And there's a Colossus Hammer.
Yeah, not an impressive turn for Mason. So Adam, Adam really running away with this game here. And did Adam remember these Esper Sentinel triggers?
He spaced on them that time. So that's a gift for Mason there.
Yeah, although I think it's because Adam kind of smells blood in the water here and is moving him
perhaps
for the kill.
All right,
maybe Mason can hold those missed triggers over Adam's head afterwards. We'll see.
Yeah, Puresteel Paladin. All right. Well, okay. I mean, you said hitting Colossus Hammer is not going to do much good, but depending on how much of Mason's deck gets into play for Adam, maybe that won't be the case. Although I guess Puresteel Paladin is not actually going to be castable here, as there aren't 2 white mana. But here's a Murktide, and yeah, Mason missing land drops. Half of his deck's in play on Adam's side of the board. Not looking too great here.
Yeah, when your opponent is playing more relevant cards from your deck than you are, you know that you're in dire straits.
All right. Saga reaches chapter 3 without construct mana available. So we'll tutor up, but then Mason will be down even further on mana, which makes these Sentinels even more likely to trigger. Or I guess more least likely to be paid for. They're going to trigger just as often as Adam remembers them.
Yeah, tough to find a way out here from Mason, I think.
Yeah. 9 life facing down a 5/5 flyer plus a variety of other creatures. And we're still tutoring. Okay.
I think if there is a way back, it involves maybe if Mason can play Puresteel Paladin and I suit it up with Hammer. If he has extra Shadowspear, then maybe you set something together. But I mean, on board, Adam is very far ahead, and that's to say nothing of what might be in his hand or on the top of his deck. Being delivered via Esper Sentinel as well.
Well, Mason taking his time here, trying to think through the options. Springleaf Drum was the first card pulled forward. Now Gingerbrute, and I'm sure if that's okay. That is going to be it. Gingerbrute into play, so that can get through. But I'm not sure that attacking is worth a ton here for Mason.
Okay, so if this is Memnite trying to set up Puresteel Paladin, then that's a start.
Yeah, that is a lot. Yeah, it is. You're right. So that's a point there. So down to 8. So this Colossus Hammer, let's see. What do we got here? Okay, we got a dress down. Well, so what that's going to do here is it's going to not allow Puresteel Paladin to equip Colossus Hammer this turn, which really takes the wind out of the sails for Mason.
Yeah, and there's a Shadowspear. So if Adam was on nothing, that would represent a 12 health life-linking Gingerbrute, which could actually flip the game on its head there. So
no, you're right. That would have reset Mason's life total, and Adam would have been right on the verge of death. So that was a pretty huge interplay there.
Okay.
And then
kill everything, kill you, game 3. Let's go.
All right. Wasburn Moses ties us up, sends us to a game number 3. Mason playing for potential of making it into the Nerd Rage Championship, which do we have a slide for the Nerd Rage Championship? We've talked about a whole bunch. Let's go ahead and throw up the details on that if we have it available, as that is certainly something that's been being eyed by a lot of the players for the last several months. There are the full details. It is Pioneer and Modern this year, Departure. Some years we've had Legacy, some years we've had Limited. This year it's just Pioneer and Modern. 16 players split into 2 groups. Play everybody in your group. That's day 1, aside from tiebreaker rounds. And then we move through some double elimination sets. And then the top 4 in the finals are going to be best 2 out of 3 matches involving both formats. So a lot to look forward to. Pioneer and Modern action for high stakes. January 14th and 15th, if you want to put a mark on your calendar. And we got 9 players locked up with invites. The winner of this Modern event will join them. And then we've got 2 season 3 points invites and 4 overall year-long points invites. And the way that prioritizes is the season 3 counts first. So any players that are on both lists, which I believe includes Zach Allen, will qualify season 3 first, and then season 4 will fill the remaining players. So that's how things look. And you see the rest of the players already in the field. Ivan Espinosa won last year's championship, so he was the first one, and the others have been filled throughout the year. So a lot to look forward to with the Energy Series. Hope you'll join us in January and next year. But this weekend, this is the last event for this calendar year, and we're excited to bring it to you. And Dominic, we're happy to have you here.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, and that last event of the year for any kind of series like this, you can feel the buzz in the room as these players who have played with and against each other the entire year, like only some of them can claim those spots. And there's always a sense of, the matches are very high stakes, and then also you're also invested in other people's success or failure potentially in a way that you aren't at a normal tournament. So it really feels like a special tournament. I'm sure that there might be some nerves for players who aren't feeling them normally. A lot on the line here for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely so a lot of these players, fairly large interactive groups of friends who, maybe test and play together or advise each other. And yeah, there may be a little bit less loyalty going on in a weekend like this, where you're thinking, okay, I have to compete against my friends, but qualifying or winning does matter. And maybe there was less cooperation heading into this event than usual, or maybe not. They still have to beat everyone else in the field, and these players have proven over time that they are adept at doing that.
You end up in these interesting positions sometimes where it's, I really hope you don't top 8. But now that you have, I really want you to win because that means you'll qualify through some other method or something. So you end up with these real roller coasters of emotion in these top 8 sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we saw both players took a mulligan, and then Mason's still shuffling. I looked away for a second, but I assume we're on our way to 5 here, which is, Will Kruger did finishing me off. I alluded to me being destroyed by Hammer. Will Kruger mulled to 5 and beat me on turn 3. So this deck is capable of a lot, even with limited hand size. So no reason to count Mason out, even though he is, as of yet, unable to find a hand to keep.
Yeah, the nice thing about Hammer is all of your cards that matter cost 1 or 2 mana, effectively, or less, if you count Urza Saga and stuff in the mix. And so you're back in the Lewis days. Lewis was effectively free, and it was very common to mull to 6, mull to 5, and then that 5-card hand would just win the game on turn 3 without breaking a sweat.
All right, so let's see if Mason can find a hand here that will work. She's Sentinel, some lands, Inkmoth Nexus. All right, we are underway. All right. Similar to the beginning of game 1, Esper Sentinel will pick up a card, so Mason works back some of the disadvantage, and then Adam will deploy the Bauble.
That is okay. Inkmoth Nexus and then Gingerbrute just straight into the red zone, coming to play tapped, just encroaching upon Adam's side of the board. You'd love to see it.
Yeah, yes, indeed. So Adam will take a point. And still, out of all possible plays from Mason Clark, Gingerbrute on turn 2, Adam is probably thrilled with that outcome.
Yeah, if Mason had followed up with turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic or maybe Urza Saga and something else, then maybe you start to get worried from Adam's side. But with Gingerbrute, I think the sweat is off for now.
Yeah, no Cigar's 8 or something to set up the future, although I believe there's one in hand now for Mason. All right, now I got the Bauble trigger resolved.
Hiya.
Yeah, in for 1. Adam's done more work in his life total than Mason has so far, down to 15. Oof. Okay, another Nexus for Mason. So, Nexus has the potential to cut in half the number of total damage you have to do. A Hammer can one shot. And Adam's like, you know what? I'm actually going to waste a spell on this Gingerbrute because you're not doing anything else.
Yeah, Mason potentially getting stranded with double white spells in hand, potentially Puresteel Paladin, Sanctifier, en-Vec, stuff of that nature. Adam just sees a shot to actually clear the board up and leave Mason on basically nothing and decides to take it.
Right. And then Unholy Heat going to the graveyard helps set up a Murktide if there is one. More cards in the graveyard, the better. More instances of sorcerers in the graveyard, the better. So let's see what is on the menu here for Adam Waspermosis. And it is a Murktide. So I will chunk out most of the graveyard there. I believe we still got a land incoming from the fetch land. And passing with no mana available, but not overly concerned with what Mason's got going on right now, which appears to be nothing.
And a whole lot of nothing, it looks like. And Adam knows there's really no way that Mason, from this starting position, can string together some impressive turn maybe there's a Sandbag Sagada's Aid and a Hammer and then something else. But even that, if Adam has any kind of follow-up, he can clean that up pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. All right, so there's a Sanctifier and en-Vec. The graveyard has already been, for the most part, eaten up. Now, Sanctifier will prevent spells from going to the graveyard, or red spells at least, for Adam. Murktide grows when cards leave the graveyard. Is that going to work together to grow the Murktide? My instinct is no.
Yeah, so I believe that, for example, this iteration that's being cast right now, that will go directly to exile, and thus will not buff the Murktide there.
Yeah.
And Sanctify is excellent against the trio of red MH2 cards that kind of headline this Murktide deck. So Ragavan, Dragon's Rage Chandler, Unholy Heat. Also good against big blue flyers. So Murktide, as we see here, and then also Ledger Treader, I think, played a big part in that card dropping off a little bit.
Yeah, even for a 5-card hand, this is fairly unimpressive for Mason Clark. But you're right; he got stuck on not having double white for a couple turns, and so that Sanctifier wasn't able to deploy early, which would have made a difference on the size of the Murktide now. Still, this Hammer deck is dangerous. It can do a lot, and with Sagada's Aid in play, you're always at the risk of just getting blown up out of nowhere.
Yeah, you can imagine a world where Adam's interaction in hand is Lightning Bolt on Holy Heat, and those don't deal with the Sanctifier. And now, if there is a hammer or something next turn, then we might be able to just make a big creature that shrugs off removal.
Yeah, Mason may not have a lot of tools to work with here, but Adam is the one that's probably concerned, because when you're gifted an advantage like this, you really want to take advantage of it, and there's fear here.
It's one of those times where you feel you're either very far ahead or could just get punked out of nowhere. And
right.
You got to make sure that you keep it in that first column.
Yeah, and you don't know which it is. Here's Sulfur tapped, and Adam is going to slam the brakes and not send in with a Murktide. I would think this suggests to Mason that Adam doesn't have a very good hand.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for if... Okay, so here's Puresteel Paladin. But do we have an actual equipment to pair with it here? If you have to end up Tron blocking the Sanctifier with the Murktide, then you're in a pretty tough spot at that point. And I don't know if you have the tools to come back. So maybe you're meant to just press your advantage with the Murktide on board and close the game out before Mason can find that missing ingredient.
We'll see. Adam's certainly choosing to slow play it so far. Now cracking the Islet at the end of the turn, so a few more cards in hand to play with. So Bolt in hand, Murktide being a 5/5, 2 swings plus the Bolt would be enough to end the game, but gonna go for the more conservative route and try and take down the Puresteel Paladin here. Also, I guess of note is that Inkmoth Nexus could actually block Murktide and slow things down a little bit. All right. So Mason figures out if he wants to respond to this lightning bolt. I'll address a question from the chat on, did Adam keep 7 cards? No, this was Mason Multi 5, Adam Multi 6 this game. And Adam's graveyard consists of 2 Mishra's Wobbles and the Fiery Islet. All the other cards are the Exile Zone. That is the differentiation between the vertical and horizontally placed cards.
And there's Dress Down, which would allow red removal like a Lightning Bolt or Unholy Heat to take out the Sanctifier. So that may be what we're going for here. Yeah, no, it is. Sanctifier down. And
that bolt actually should go to the... it did go to the graveyard. Yeah, okay.
Yes. And it seems like Adam doing this in his own end step. Smart move there, just allowing the dress down to persist through Mason's turn.
Mm-hmm. So this is an attack for 1 regular damage. Make that
and
11.
There's okay.
There was a block. Okay.
Yep, Murktide down. Now that hammer will fall off when the Inkmoth Nexus deanimates at the end of turn. So this is more of a temporary thing. But okay, we dealt with the Murktide region. That's a good start.
Yeah. Okay. And all of a sudden, Mason, while currently unable to re-equip the hammer, is in a much more stable position now.
Yeah, there is iteration though, so Adam will, I imagine, be able to present something threatening in the near future.
Ooh, Explosives is a winner.
Yeah, we'll take that one.
All right, Explosives into play 4/1, which currently wipes out every non-land permanent on the table.
And there's no pressure to act now either. You can just let that one sit there and bide its time.
Yeah, Adam would probably be wise to just pass the turn here and just build for the future. Instead, okay, Explosive is just going to blow up immediately, clean up the board, and Mason will draw, putting a second card in hand with 2 Nexus. And do we just see an attack for 2 poison here? No. There's more action coming than that.
Yeah, I think we want to cash in this Canopy for a new card.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we're casting whatever that was. Maybe a follow-up Sanctifier? No, just one of these new old border Springleaf Drums that added to the range of possible card choices with Brothers War.
Yeah, so I get the range of possible card choices. Mason Clark here with mismatched basic lands.
Mismatched Horizon Canopies. I mean,
yeah. Some people have no style.
Disgraceful.
Yeah.
I mean, not to harp on Adam here, but we got a signed Steam Vents, and then we got some non-signed Steam Vents. I don't know how offensive that is in the grand scheme of things.
I mean, yeah, you know what? I played 4 Pithing Needles at the regional championship, and I only had 3 signed ones, and I was just so disappointed with myself having to play an unmatching one. And these players are just, trumping that. They're like, you shouldn't feel bad, Joe. We have much worse stuff going on here.
Rob Alexander is a tough man to track down signatures for, so can't blame him too much on that.
All right, Iteration finds a Sulphur Falls. We're looking for actual action here. There's Dash Ragavan. Okay, that's something. I mean, it could trade for a land. So, okay, it wasn't much, but
it's still really not much going on either side here.
No, there sure isn't.
Successive expressive iterations for Adam.
There's a Sanctifier, and that will take a chunk out of the graveyard. And I mean, it being a 5-turn clock seems silly to think that could matter, but not much is happening. So maybe.
Mistress Bauble, and then Dress Down is there if Adam wants to access that card immediately. I think that's an important enough tool that you would rather hold that until a crucial moment, but looks like we're just shuffling that card away instead.
Yeah, that is a route to removing the Sanctifier en-Vec. And Adam's at 9, but yeah, unless it gets equipped, shouldn't matter too much. And when you're thinking through lines against the hammer deck, you're not thinking, okay, well, this and this could happen, and then I'm dead unless Sanctifier en-Vec attacks 8 times unopposed. But we're approaching that here.
Yeah, Adam making his 8th land drop of the game. Okay, there's Letter Shredder, which is a good start, but a little short on spells to pair with it or good connive fodder at this stage. And I almost wonder if maybe Adam is meant to hold one of those excess lands, just with a vision of potentially having something to connive away if you do draw Shredder. But
yeah, well, he may still have more in his hand. I haven't got a good look at his hand recently, but certainly there. I mean, some of those lands came off of iterations. Here is a Stoneforge Mystic.
Okay, and there's Dress Down.
All right.
Which will turn that into just a lowly squire.
All right, that's in there. Stoneforge Mystic will just not search. And then is there a removal spell for Sanctifier? There is. No Conniving, as...
Oh, and Blacksmith skill is going to protect the Sanctifier.
All right. Well, maybe not. All right, there's an Abrade. So a whole bunch of cards to get exchanged there. No Conniving for... So yeah, Adam didn't need to hold lands for Conniving because there was not going to be Conniving. He obviously perfectly reasoned out what was likely to happen here for the rest of that turn. And does still have a land left over. Adam, solid player, knows what's going on, not going to commit everything like that, but is holding Dragon Rage Channeler right now, maybe to...
Just passing again. Yeah, so if Mason can find a Saga or another Stoneforge Mystic, then the game is very competitive all of a sudden.
Yeah. Both players have had plenty of time here, and we're just we saw a flurry of interchange a couple turns ago, and then not much before or since.
Yeah, but both decks off to a pretty bad start, and now also sputtering out again in the mid game here.
All right, here's a bolt to trigger Connive finally. I think we're bolting a Stoneforge Mystic. Perhaps a case can be made as well for bolting Mason, but the Mystic is the target, and Mason will drop to 9.
Yeah, watching this game, you would not think that these are two of the long-standing consensus best decks in Modern, and yet, so sometimes even the best decks, even the most consistent decks, end up in these like weird, scrappy games.
Yep. So this being where we are, I believe the players were checking for Delirium right there. Without Delirium, this Nexus can just trade for Dragon Rage Channeler, which I'm sure Adam... Actually, I'm not sure who would be against that trade. Well, Adam has been consistent. He is playing conservative. He does not want to, as you said, get punked out in one shot here.
Well, there is our third different Horizon Canopy art being cycled from Mason.
And here is a Mystic. So this one is going to be able to find an equipment. It is tough to balance between being aggressive or being careful. And it is not easy to tell in the moment what the right choice is. That's why we play the games out. Adam certainly, Adam choosing to be conservative, and paid off earlier was the Murktide absorbs what potentially would have been a lethal attack something like 8 turns ago. Colossus Hammer is the choice, and now Adam potentially has more to actually be worried about. This match coming down to the late stages, though. It can't last much longer, whoever's going to win.
We are also hearing that Hammer expert in his own right, Will Kruger, someone who is constantly floating around the top of the seasonal and yearly standings and who is looking to lock up one of those spots this weekend, moves to 3-0. So after a great start again here, and looking good to really punch his ticket officially there.
All right, our 2020-21 MVP looking to make his way in off of the at-large leaderboard spot this year. So not quite the lofty performance of years past, but then that was a lot to aspire to, and still doing fairly impressive work. Adam has now got Mason to the spot where one Dragon Rage Channeler hit is lethal, but again, there is a Nexus that can block. It's time to unleash whatever is left. For Mason, it looks like some land and a hammer that Adam knows about. And Mason is not going to commit the hammer. He's just going to let the creatures bounce. Oh boy. Oh, yeah, lots going on here. Wow. What costs 4 mana? Otawara.
Wow, okay.
Otawara does not say non-land like a lot of these cards seem to do these days. It does specify all the different types. Target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Mason's like, hopefully it says non-land.
Is that going to be the finishing blow here somehow?
Something has to. We're right at the death of this game here. One of these players is going to win pretty much right now. And Mason's sitting there and he's like, hey, man,
there it is.
I had this Colossus Hammer back to be able to block and kill your guy. That was my plan. And
wow.
Adam Wasburn takes it down. So well-navigated game there. There was multiple different points in that game spread out over kind of the period where nothing happened for a few turns, where Adam played conservative and was rewarded for it. I mean, some players would have attacked and died in those scenarios. So good on him. And he does defeat Mason Clark here in advance of 3-0.
Yeah, I would not have bet on that game lasting, what was it, a dozen turns or more? That
At
was
least. Yeah.
Quite something. Yeah. The Odawara was the real clincher for me. Because that often that one copy of Odawara, which is so effectively free in many decks, is the one thing that could get you out of a certain situation, or it's the one card that could maybe offer this theoretical out, and you have to consider what if they have it. And so to see that kind of pesky one-off just somehow decide that entire game is the real cherry on top.
Yeah, no, nicely done there. So it sounds like we're gonna have an interview coming up in a moment, but Adam Wasburn advances to 3-0. Let's go ahead and pop the leaderboard back up there so we can get an idea of where he's at, what spot he's actually in, fighting for qualifications. And he's in spot where if things ended now, he would be good. You can see there.
Likely to make it, I think, no matter what happens, but you don't want to leave that your fate in other people's hands. You want to just get some W's on the board, get a little higher on the board yourself, and actually, take that out of play. And it looks like with a 3-0 start, even if Adam doesn't end up converting to top 8 here, even just a top 16 finish or something slightly below, that might give him just the kind of small points buffer he needs to really lock that up.
Right, especially with Raja Suleiman starting off 0-2 today. So then do Adam's sights shift higher? Let's see. Can he make it all the way into the lead? That looks like 33 points. So with 2 dynamite finishes this weekend, Adam Wasburn could conceivably threaten the overall leaderboard and be the MVP this year. Now, what does the MVP get? Well, they get free entry to all the events next year. That's pretty cool. They also get to make an alteration to the pods for the championship. The MVP, after the players are split into 2 pods of 8, the MVP can make an exchange. Either move themselves to another pod or just swap one of the fearsome players of their pod into the other one. So that's a little perk that we threw in there that has been exciting the last few years. So we'll see who ends up earning that and what they're able to do with it as we move towards that championship. All right, so Adam is ready. Let's go ahead and bring him in here.
Hello.
Hey, all right. So we got a lot to talk about here. So that match, and particularly that last game. So it seemed like there were multiple points in that game where you could have chosen to be aggressive or conservative, and you made the conservative choices and got paid off for it.
Yeah, I like the one turn I took the aggressive line was just immediately blowing up EE when he stopped out, and like I can lose from that spot if his last 2, like if he has Sigarda's Aid or Hammer and then draws the other one, and I was like, I'm not playing around that. But I played around basically everything I possibly could to the best of my abilities. You just have to like force them into an awkward spot with their protection and hope that Dress Down is good enough to snipe it, because matchup's really not ideal.
Yeah, that was a very strange game to watch unfold, where it felt like you really were far ahead in the first few turns, and we were almost riding Mason off and trying to think about the segue into whatever segment will come next, and then the game just kind of stalled out for 5 or 6 turns in there, and it seemed like Mason was maybe inching ahead or even stealing it, depending on what he drew, and then just didn't really draw anything and you were back in it again?
Yeah. I had Fury as the last card in my hand, which was very good in theory. But the issue is you have to board out counter spells because their deck is like really good against counterspell. But then you get into an end game where you don't have counterspell, and I'm like, well, I have all sorts of bad draws here. But so does Hammer, so it all balanced out in the end.
Right, and then so we saw at the end there, the Otawara obviously played a big role there. Was that something you're sitting on for a while, or did that come right at the end?
Yeah, I had that one for a while. I surveilled it top at some point. I believe I knew it would come up at some point where I was like going to be attacking for lethal and wanted to bounce, but it's also just very good against them, especially if they have Sigarda's Aid in play. A lot less good against Puresteel.
So you're looking pretty solid as far as getting into the championship. Your spot looks okay. Roger Suleiman had a rough opening this morning. Now, 33 points for the lead at the moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
on the table. You're looking
sure.
Good today? Yeah.
If I like win, maybe I'll go for it tomorrow. I kind of just want to do super well today and then not worry about tomorrow. Maybe not even play tomorrow. Just relax. You know, have my walk arounds, chill out, go bowling or whatever. You know.
What that makes me wonder is how awkward is that ride back to Oxford, Ohio going to be if you jump over Connor and steal his Player of the Year spot from him?
Oh, it will be a fun ride for sure, for at least one of us.
For at least one of you, yeah, sure. So if you did decide to play tomorrow, what deck would you run in Pioneer if you are trying to play tomorrow? You have Lotus Field. Good choice.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I just want more reps in. I really want to know how to attack Lotus Field, and I think the best way to do that is just by playing it.
Sure.
I don't necessarily want to play it again in the future. I just kind of want to know how to shut it off in the future.
Yeah,
all right.
It does.
Well, then
it does
we are not
seem
friends.
like the deck is the talk of the town at the moment, and it just seeing card requests from people asking to borrow Zakamas and what have you. Seems like there are a lot of your people out there in the room this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about it. You know, it's more just so I know how the deck functions. I played a good amount of it online, but I just want to know how to combat it most effectively, and it's a really hard deck to play against, I think.
All right. Well, Adam Wasburn Moses 3-0, looking to lock up a spot in the championship today and get it done. Congratulations on your good start. A few more rounds to go.
Yeah.
Good luck. How you feeling? You feeling confident? Or you feeling nervous?
I feel very good. I've practiced a lot with this deck. I normally don't practice that much Modern. I practice a lot of the Hammer matchup, the Mirror, and Breach, which I think are going to be big top table decks. And I think those reps have really helped me. And so hopefully they continue to help.
Yeah, looks like it's paying off. All right. Adam Wasburn Moses. Good luck the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
All right. And we're back here. We are playing Modern all day today. The event will finish up with the semis and finals tomorrow morning. And then we'll be into Pioneer 5K for the rest of Sunday. But it's all Modern today. Thanks for being with us. Hope you're enjoying yourselves. We know there are other options out there for Magic coverage, so thank you for choosing us. And now we're going to wait for direction on whether we're going to a break. Okay, we're going to a break. Okay, and we're going to a break. So we'll be back in a few minutes with round 4. Stick around.